Today's lesson is shortcuts for ships. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And today we're going to talk about something called canals. Okay, they're kind of artificial rivers that boats go through. And I suppose the reason we're talking about canals today is because of that incident a couple of months ago involving that large container ship called the Ever Given.
Yes, I think during that incident, what happened was the Ever Given blocked the canal so that it basically blocked traffic and all of the other container ships weren't able to get through and get to their destination, the final point where they were supposed to arrive at to deliver the goods. So it stopped transportation and delivery for the entire world practically.
Indeed, and of course that incident happened in the Suez Canal, which is in the Middle East there in Egypt. And of course we're going to talk about that canal, and we're also going to talk about another of the world's most famous canals, the Panama Canal. Okay, so let's dive right into today's lesson. Let's begin by listening to the first part.
Shortcuts for ships. 90% of all products made and sold globally are transported by ship. Think about this fact for a moment, and then imagine a map of the world. To get from Europe to Asia by sea, you must travel all the way around Africa. To get from Asia to the east coast of North America, you must travel around the tip of South America. It's so inconvenient. To make transporting goods more efficient, two shortcuts were created, the Suez and Panama Canals.
大家好，标题中我们看到单字 shortcut， 这个字是名词，意思是捷径。例如 You can get to school faster each morning if you take this shortcut. 如果你走这条捷径，每天早上去上学会更快。或是 You must do your homework properly instead of taking shortcuts to try to get it done more quickly. 你必须老实做功课，别再为了更快做完就抄捷径。另外补充一个相关片语There is no shortcut to 加名词或是动词 ing 表示点点点没有捷径。举例来说 There is no shortcut to success. It takes hard work and dedication. 成功没有捷径，它需要努力和全心投入。或是 There are no shortcuts to becoming a professional athlete. 要成为职业选手没有捷径。再来我们看到名词 canal 指运河或是水道。例如 We went for a walk along the canal after eating dinner. 我们吃完晚餐后沿着运河散步。或是 Venice is famous for its many canals. 威尼斯因其众多的水道出名。另外除了上面的意思，这个字还可以指体内的管道，像是 Our ears, nose, and throat are connected by canals. 我们的耳朵、鼻子和喉咙有管道连接。
And welcome back. So the title of today's lesson is Shortcuts for Ships. So when we're talking about shortcuts for ships, in this lesson, we're referring to canals. Now, a shortcut is a path or a way to get somewhere that is quicker and shorter than the usual way. And that's what these canals are. They provide shortcuts for the ships to get from one point to another. Now, why are these canals so important? Well, a lot of the things that we buy today that we can get in our own countries actually come from other countries, and they need to be transported to where we are, and a lot of the stuff that we are able to get are transported by ship. In fact, it says here in the first sentence, 90% of all products made and sold globally are transported by ship.
That is a big number. I was not aware of that. Not 10%, not 50%, but 90%. And of course, percent is a ratio of something to 100. So if you have 90 out of 100, then you have 90% of that thing. So indeed, that's a big number here. 90% of all products are transported by ship. And think about this fact for a moment, and then imagine a map of the world. So yes, remember this statistic here. 90% of all products are transported by ship. So as you keep that in mind, then you need to imagine a map of the world. Or maybe you have one on your desk. Maybe you have a globe, and then you can think about, gee, if all these products need to be sent around the world, they probably have to travel great distances.
Yes, so let's picture a map of the world. To get from Europe to Asia by sea, you must travel all the way around Africa. To get from Asia to the east coast of North America, you must travel around the tip of South America.
Exactly. So yes, if you're trying to sell computer chips or wafer boards or whatever from Taiwan, or giant bicycles or whatever, and you want to ship them to New York City or Washington, D.C., yes, they'll have to cross the Pacific Ocean and go around the tip of South America and up along Brazil and across the Caribbean Sea and finally to New York City. So yeah, we were looking for a shortcut there, so we don't have to go all the way around the southern tip of South America.
Right. We don't want this transportation of goods to be so inconvenient. So to make transporting goods more efficient, two shortcuts were created, the Suez and Panama Canals. So these two canals are located in different parts of the world. The Suez Canal is located in Egypt, on the southeastern part of Egypt, and the Panama Canal is located in Panama, which is the last country in Central America, the southernmost country, I should say, in Central America that connects the continent of South America.
Indeed, and of course, if you're talking about goods, you're talking about products that are manufactured in a certain place and then they are shipped to other places, maybe within that country or overseas. And yes, indeed, the two major canals in the world are the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal, although there are several smaller ones, right? I've heard of the Grand Canal and the Erie Canal in New York State, I believe, and there are probably many other ones all around. But yeah, these are the two main canals.
Yes, and to be clear, a canal is a long passage that is dug into the ground and filled with water for boats to travel along. So these boats could transport goods, products, or people. People need to get around also. And to save time, they don't want to have to travel around entire continents and be traveling on the ocean for months. With these canals, with the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal, the transportation or travel time can be cut down significantly.
Yeah, they're actually very small. I saw pictures, of course, of the Ever Given stuck in the Suez Canal, and it's not very wide there. So yeah, if one ship screws up, then that canal will be blocked for an indefinite time. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson. Let's move on now to the second part and talk about the Suez Canal.
The Suez Canal was built between 1859 and 1869 to connect the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian and Pacific Oceans. The canal shortened the journey from Europe to Asia by around 7,000 kilometers, making Asia far more commercially accessible and allowing convenient access to the Middle Eastern oil trade.
第二部分我们看到单字 accessible， 这个字是形容词，指可进入的、可得到的或是易使用的。例如 The novel is accessible to readers of all ages. 那本小说适合老老少少的读者阅读。或是 Unfortunately, the upper levels of the castle are not accessible to people in wheelchairs. 可惜的是，对坐轮椅的人来说，城堡的上方区域不方便进入。
So let's talk about the Suez Canal and learn a little bit more about it. Well, the Suez Canal was built between 1859 and 1869 to connect the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian and Pacific Oceans. So it took around 10 years to build this canal, and the motive for building it was to connect two bodies of water, the Mediterranean Sea, which is the smaller body of water south of Italy or south of Europe and north of North Africa, and the Indian and Pacific Oceans.
Right, so technically the Suez Canal connects the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea, but once you get into the Red Sea, that will lead you to the Indian Ocean and then eventually the Pacific Ocean and Asia. So indeed, the Suez Canal was built a long time ago. I had no idea it was built so long ago in 1859 and 1869, between those 2 years. Now, the canal shortened the journey from Europe to Asia by around 7,000 kilometers. That's a very large distance there, making Asia far more commercially accessible and allowing convenient access to the Middle Eastern oil trade. Indeed, that's the important thing there. You can ship oil from the Middle East to Europe much faster that way. Okay, so commercially means having to do with business. Of course, people in the Middle East want to sell their oil, and then people elsewhere want to sell things to the Middle East or to the Far East, and those things go through the Suez Canal.
Right. So I could say, for instance, for the word commercially, the company made good quality goods, but they were commercially unsuccessful because the goods were too expensive. So the goods were good, but they didn't do well commercially, which means they weren't able to sell a lot of these products because the prices were too high. Now, the Suez Canal made other parts of the world much more accessible commercially. So accessible in this context means, well, something that is accessible is easy to get or reach. And to be commercially accessible means that it made it easier for commerce, for business to be conducted between different places in the world.
Yep, commercially accessible. Now, I remember in high school when my Uncle Bernie from California came to visit us. He was in a wheelchair at the time, and we decided to go to a restaurant in some place. But unfortunately, the restaurant was not wheelchair accessible. Okay, that means he was not able to roll his wheelchair into the restaurant. There were some obstructions there, so of course we had to go someplace else. So that's an example of the word accessible, wheelchair accessible, and also in the sentence we're talking about places that are commercially accessible, and of course you want to have access to Middle Eastern oil fields if you're buying or selling oil. So if you have access to something, that means you are able to get at that thing.
Right. It means how easy or difficult it is for people to enter a place, a public building, for instance, to reach a place or to talk to someone. I don't have access to this person's telephone number, so I am unable to contact this person and talk to them.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the third part.
More than a century on, the canal is busier than ever, with around 18,000 ships passing through it each year. In March 2021, the 400-meter-long, 200,000-ton ship Ever Given became stuck in the canal, blocking the Vital Waterway for almost a week and holding up $9.6 billion of trade per day. This incident highlighted the canal's continued importance to the world economy.
第三部分我们看到名词 waterway 指航道或是水路，也可以指运河或是河流等，像是 up to 15,000 ships pass through this waterway each year. 每年有将近15000艘船通过这条水路。最后我们可以看到片语 hold up something or somebody 表示延误或是耽搁……我们可以说 A traffic jam held up Wilson on the way to the airport. Wilson 前往机场途中被塞车耽搁了。另外，除了上面的意思，这个片语还有以下2种用法。第一，指抢劫，例如Kenny watched an action film about 2 criminals who hold up a bank. Kenny 看了一部关于2个抢匪抢劫银行的动作片。 第二，指维持或是保持。举例来说 ，The house held up well in the storm。那栋房子在暴风雨中仍保持完整。
So the Suez Canal took 10 years to build between 1859 and 1869. Now, afterwards, it really made transportation a lot easier for the entire world. More than a century on, so more than 100 years later, the canal is busier than ever, with around 18,000 ships passing through it each year. So that's a lot of ships from different countries carrying goods from one country, from one continent to another, making international trade possible.
That is a very large number. So, gee, how many ships is that per day if you take the number 18,000 and divide it by 365? You get a total of 49 ships every day. Let's say 50 to round it off to a higher number there. So that's a lot of large container vessels going through that canal every day and every year. 18,000 ships. And in March 2021, which was a few months ago, the 400-meter-long, 200,000-ton ship Ever Given became stuck in the canal, blocking the Vital Waterway for almost a week. And that was a long time, of course. Of course, I think we remember hearing about that in the news, and they were stuck there for a while, but they were able to clear the canal in a pretty short amount of time, although it probably affected prices of commodities worldwide.
Yes, because the canal is actually quite narrow. So if a ship gets stuck in there, it's not as if another ship could just go past, swerve around it and go past it. It has to wait until that ship gets unstuck before it can pass through the canal. Now, when the Ever Given was stuck in the Suez Canal, it blocked the Vital Waterway. So the Vital Waterway refers to the Suez Canal. And waterway refers to a river or canal that boats travel on. And this waterway, the Suez Canal, is vital, meaning it's extremely important and extremely necessary for something to happen. In this case, for international trade, for the transport of shipping containers to happen. So in this sense, it's very vital. I could also say, for instance, Sheila is vital to the company. She is very important to the company because she does good work, she's intelligent, and so on and so forth.
And she should get a raise for sure. I could also say, for example, if you want to open a restaurant, doing some market research is vital. You need to know if your restaurant is going to be in a good location and if people are actually going to go to your restaurant. Yes, some research would be very, very important. It would be vital.
So this shipping container, the Ever Given, it's mentioned how heavy it is. It's 200,000 ton. And here, ton is a unit for weight measurement, a metric unit that's equivalent to 1,000 kilograms. There is also the U.S. ton, which is spelled differently, spelled T-O-N, and that is equal to 2,000 pounds.
Right, so if you're in the U.S., they're probably going to use the U.S. ton, which will be different to the metric ton. And how you tell them apart is through the spelling. So we've got T-O-N-N-E here. That, of course, refers to a metric ton, which is 1,000 kilograms. So this boat was long and it was heavy and it got stuck in the canal and it blocked that vital waterway for almost a week. And it was holding up $9.6 billion of trade per day. That's a lot of lost money. So my goodness, if you're a company that exports products to Europe from Taiwan, my goodness, you might have to lower the salaries of your employees or something to make up that money.
Yes, so the ship held up $9.6 billion of trade per day. Here, the phrasal verb to hold up means to delay something or someone. So it often happens that, well, if you commute and you drive a lot and you drive on a highway, an accident on the highway might hold up traffic, making you late getting home or going to work. So to hold up basically means to delay something.
Yeah, a couple years ago, my cousin Dawn was coming to visit me here in Taiwan, but she got held up at customs when she entered the country, so it took her a long time to come out of the airport, so we waited for her for quite some time there. But yeah, she got delayed, she got held up, and indeed, trade was held up as a result of this incident involving the Ever Given. And this incident highlighted the canal's continued importance to the world economy. So here we've got the verb to highlight, and you do that in your textbook, for example, if you're reading an assignment or something and you come across some important information, you use a highlighter, a special kind of pen, to mark some words in the textbook so that you can see them more easily when you review for the exam. So that's the verb here, to highlight. That just means to emphasize something.
That's right. So, for instance, I could say the recent train accident highlighted the need for stricter government controls on public transportation. So, the recent train accident made it very clear that more government controls are necessary.
Yep, and again, this incident highlighted the continued importance to the world economy. Continued means it's just going to keep on going. It's going to keep being important in the future. So yeah, we need to take care of those canals, and we cannot let those big container ships get stuck in canals so often. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分写到，苏伊士运河缩短了从欧洲到亚洲之间大约7000公里的路程，使亚洲在商业上更容易到达，也让中东的石油交易更方便取得。好，文中它用到单字 accessible 来形容是可进入的、可得到的。那它的相关词性 access 它是可以表达通道啊、进入或是进入权。我们来学习它的字首字根。当我们看到 CESS、CEED、CEDE 这一类的字根，它们有 go 的意思，也就是前进、行走。那它们也会有这种退让啊、投降或是放弃的语义。好，在 access 这个字当中，它的字首 AC 表示朝向， CESS 表示 go 行进。当我们朝向某人事物行进，这样应该很容易联想到 access 它有接近、进入的意思。那顺便补充几个有这一类字根的单字。第一个是 necessary， 我们知道它是形容有必要的，那它的字首 ne 表示否定，字根 cess 表示放弃，那么 ary 是形容词字尾。什么叫否定放弃呢？不得放弃的东西，那就表示它是必要的、必须的咯。好，第二个补充的是 exceed， exceed， 好，它的字首 ex 表示由内向外，那么 ceed 表示行进。我们就试着想说，由内而外走出去，去向外发展，那么就会胜过那些留在原地的人，超越那些人了。所以 exceed 它就有超过啊、胜过或是凌驾之上的意思咯。第三个补充的是 precede， P-R-E-C-E-D-E， 它的字首 P-R-E 表示事先，在什么什么之前，然后字根 C-E-D-E 表示行进，把两部分组合在一起，这个字面意思就是走在什么什么之前。那 precede 这个动词就是用来表达处于什么之前，先于什么什么。如果我们在 precede 后面加上名词字尾 ENT， 变成 precedent， precedent 表示先例、前例的那种意思。像我们可以说 break with precedent， 就是破例、打破先例。好，那接着如果你在这个 precedent 前面加上否定字首 UN， 然后在字尾加上 ED， 变成 unprecedented， 就是可以用来描述它是前所未见的、空前的、史无前例的。好，另外文中它用到 making Asia far more commercially accessible 来表达使亚洲在商业上更容易到达。那这个动词 make 在这边表示使变得、使成为，常常会用句型 make 加受词加受词补语来表达说使某人或某事物成为什么，变得怎么样。那它的受词补语呢，可以是名词或形容词，用来对这个你的受词来做补充说明哦。好，我们来造两个例句。Listening to music makes me happy. 听音乐让我变得快乐。这时候受词补语我们就是用 happy 这个形容词。The singer's second album made her a superstar. 那位歌手的第二张专辑使她成为一位超级巨星。那这时候受词补语我们就是用 a superstar 这个名词来补充说明咯。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾这些单字吧。
Percent. Around 71% of the Earth's surface is covered in water. Canal. Roberta traveled to Venice and took a boat ride along the canals. Commercially. Unfortunately, the project was not commercially successful. Accessible. The internet has made information easily accessible to most people. Vital. It is vital to follow all of the safety instructions while on board the ship. Highlight. The politician's speech highlighted the importance of free public health care.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.